Thank you, Ben, and good morning, esteemed colleagues, distinguished speakers, honored guests, and all participants joining us from across South Africa and beyond. It is my great privilege on behalf of South African Heritage Resources Agency to welcome you to our annual Heritage Month webinar taking place from the 16th to the 19th of September 2025. This year, our gathering is guided by the theme, Resilient Heritage, Safeguarding South Africa's Legacy in a Changing Climate, aligned with G20 priority focus on climate change and disaster risk management. This theme could not be more timely. Across the globe, and indeed here at home, we are witnessing the devastating impacts of climate change, floods, droughts, fires, and rising sea levels that threaten not only our environment, but also cultural and historical fabric that connects us to our past and shapes our identity. Heritage is more than monuments, archives, or landscapes. It is also the living traditions, practices, and stories passed from generation to generation. As climate change accelerates, so too does the risk of losing irreplaceable heritage, particularly in vulnerable communities. This calls for urgent action, innovative solutions, and inclusive approaches to ensure that our shared legacy is protected for future generations. Over the next 4 days, this webinar will take us on a journey. We will begin by understanding the threats of our heritage faces in changing climate. We will then turn to the role of disaster risk management and explore the policies and practices needed to safeguard heritage during times of crisis. We will listen to the voices of our heritage community, our custodians of knowledge and resilience, who remind us that climate justice must also be cultural justice. And finally, we will look forward exploring how technology, innovation, and sustainable practices can help us adapt and build resilience for the future. I wish to extend my deepest gratitude to our partners, speakers, and participants who have joined us in this important dialogue. Your insights, your expertise, and your commitment are vital to advancing the protection of our heritage in the face of climate emergency. As we reflect, engage, and share over the coming days, let us be guided by a simple truth. Heritage is not a luxury, but necessity. It grounds us, unites us, and lights the way forward. Even in times of uncertainty, together, we can ensure that South Africa's heritage not only survives, but thrives as a source of resilience and inspiration for generations to come. I thank you, and I look forward to the rich discussions that lie ahead. And at this point, I would like to introduce my newly appointed chairperson of SARA, Ms. Elodie Tlwaele.
Good morning, distinguished guests, colleagues, partners, and friends of heritage. It is an honor to join you today as we open the South African Heritage Resources Agency's annual Heritage Month webinar, held from the 16th to the 19th of September 2025. Each year, this platform allows us to reflect, to engage, and to act in the spirit of Heritage Month, a time when our nation comes together to celebrate the richness of our past, the strength of our diversity, and the promise of our future. This year's commemoration carries special significance as we situate our discussions within the global context of the G20 theme, which is climate change and disaster risk management. Heritage Month reminds us that heritage is not just about memory, it's about continuity. It is about ensuring that the cultural, historical, and spiritual treasures that have been entrusted to us are safeguarded against the challenges of our time, chief among them being the existential threat of climate change. South Africa is both blessed and challenged in this regard. We are blessed with heritage of extraordinary richness, from iconic archaeological sites and battlefields to sacred landscapes, built environments, and vibrant living traditions. Yet we're challenged by the growing risks of floods, droughts, fires, and rising seas, forces that threaten not only our environment, but also the places, practices, and identities that define who we are. As chairperson of SARA, I believe that this Heritage Month calls on us to renew our commitment to stewardship. We must embrace both local knowledge and global frameworks. We must align our efforts with the priorities of the G20, while ensuring that South Africa's voice is strong, rooted in our realities, and reflective of our communities. In doing so, we affirm and protect the protection of our heritage in inseparable form. We affirm that the protection of heritage is inseparable from the pursuit of sustainability, resilience, and justice. Over the next 4 days, we will explore together how heritage can be protected in the face of climate change, how communities can lead in building resilience, and how innovation can light a way forward. These conversations are not theoretical. They're essential. But without action, we risk losing the very legacy that binds us together as South Africans and as part of the global community. So on behalf of the South African Heritage Resources Agency, SARA, I thank you all for joining us during this Heritage Month. Let us use this moment not only to celebrate our heritage, but also to safeguard it so that generations yet to come may inherit a legacy of strength, of resilience, and pride. I wish you fruitful deliberations and a very, very successful webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chairperson, for the very powerful message. Your camera cut during your talk. If you could please just show the people your face so they can see who Sarah's newly elected chairperson is. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. No problem at all. The message was well received. Thank you so much. Now, with that said, we're going to skip right into our program. Our program director for today is Mr. Keenan Africa. Ms. Mama Komoreng Khasi will then do the introduction at the end. So I would, she's actually just walked in right now. Good morning, Komi. We're just waiting for you. If you could just give us 1 second as Komi settles in to give us the purpose of the webinar. And now let me welcome Ms. Mama Komoreng Khasi Nisaona, who's going to be giving us the purpose of the webinar.
Good morning, colleagues. Good morning to CEO. Good morning to our guests. Ben, I don't know who we have in the audience, but we do appreciate the attendance today. It is one of the series that we have every year that now our Heritage Week webinar has become a norm within SARA. And I think, Ben, this is our 4th year, but every year feels like the first year every time. And so as we embark on this week, what we are doing as Heritage with the rest of the heritage sector is to try and remember, when I will give an example of the developers with the communities. where there may be a disagreement, the last resort that the communities always go to is heritage. And one wonders that, you know, when everything almost fails, you remember your roots, you remember who you are. And so Heritage Week and Heritage Month within South Africa, I think it is that time when we take a pause and try to remember our cultures, and within South Africa, very diverse cultures. And this week, the SARA team has worked very hard to try and get us in this reflections in various days with various themes within which our guests will engage in conversations with the participants for us to understand the broad spectrum of heritage management within the context of how heritage is impacted today in times of disasters, in times of climate change. And so as we look for the tools, as we explore where we are at, we really call upon your engagements all, that we may come at the end of the fourth day, that we will come up with the solutions and the tools that can benefit heritage resources management, better promotion and better conservation and protection of the heritage resources. And so my task, as I've been asked here, is really to say, engage thoroughly as much as possible to a degree that we will be able to come up with the solutions. We thank you for your time over the 4 coming days. And we are looking forward to really open, engaging discussions. Thank you, CEO. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you so much, Komi, for that very warm message. And now we're going to get into our main program for today. As I said earlier, our program director today is Mr. Keenan Africa. I'm going to be handing over to him now. And I thank you all so much for your participation today. Please engage using the chat, and you are welcome to pose any questions or queries to all of our wonderful speakers today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. So the welcoming has already been done. So let me just do a greeting once again. Good morning, everyone that is in attendance. We thank you for your attendance. And since we are in Cape Town, a warm away. Just that. So thank you. Just to add on to Ben, what Ben has said for rules of engagement, please engage with us today, add your comments and questions. And also noting that there are arts and cultural institutions and organizations attending. Please add whatever you are hosting this Heritage Month. You know, for those that have not received an invitation to a braai, they may have something to attend to. So please extend your invitations out so that we have things to do this Heritage Month. South Africa is a lovely, lovely place, and we do appreciate seeing more of it. And just for that, we will be going into our first presentation, which is Mr. Ben Mwasinga will be providing an overview of the climate threats to South Africa's heritage landscape. So over to you, Ben.
Thank you so much, Keenan. I'm going to get straight into my presentation for today, which is going to provide an overview of the climate threats, not just facing South Africa, but Africa's heritage as well. And essentially, as I mentioned earlier, South Africa is hosting the G20 this year, and we are aligned with the G20 theme, which is looking at cultural resilience in the face of climate change. Now, when we talk about the spectrum of risks to climate, to cultural heritage in the face of the climate crisis in Africa, this obviously poses a threat to both the tangible and intangible heritage. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but it's worth mentioning that when we talk about tangible heritage, we are talking about the physical artifacts, sites, and landscapes which we interact with in our daily lives. And when we're talking about intangible heritage, we're talking about the traditions, rituals, knowledge, and customs that are practiced by peoples and groups And this is very important for the sake of identity, continuity of society, the dispensation of knowledge, and also economically in the sense of tourism. The graphic on your left shows you that these 4 areas are not mutually exclusive, whether it's movable or immovable cultural property, tangible or intangible cultural heritage. They are all equally significant, and they are all equally facing the same threat due to the climate crisis. Now, UNESCO in 2020 provided us with the heat map, which is the graphic on the left, which shows you the spectrum of risk according to UNESCO and the distribution of risk on the African continent. Now, of course, when we look at North Africa, which has a much higher temperature, which is more severely affected by rising temperature. But if we look at the distribution throughout, we can see that the crisis is basically a continental one. And what is also more alarming is that while we face the greatest threats to climate change in Africa, the majority of research that is being done in the global north, and only 20% of research that is being done on climate crisis and cultural heritage is being done in the global south. Of that 20%, only 1% is being done in Africa. So it's quite significant that we are having this webinar just as our contribution to this crisis. Now, the 4 main areas that are affecting, or the 4 symptoms of this crisis, is coastal erosion and sea level rise. There is drought and desertification, flooding and extreme rainfall, and of course, wildfires. This presentation will look at 4 case studies within the African continent that basically highlight the impact of this crisis on our cultural heritage. Now, number 1, we have the Suakin Island in Sudan, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Now, this island, which has existed and is a hub of the Swahili and Arab cultures on Africa, has obviously been dilapidated over the years, but these conservation efforts are further eroded due to the rising sea levels. A lot of the cultural heritage sites within Africa on the coastline are about 30 meters above the dam area level, which means that if there's even a 1 meter rise in the sea levels, it has a severe impact on these heritage resources. The image on your left is just one such structure, which was in good condition over the years, but has rapidly eroded over the last 20 years due to moisture and rising sea levels. The image on your left are the mud brick buildings of the Djenne cultural landscape in Mali. This is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And through drought and desertification, there is further erosion of this cultural heritage site. Another impact that it has in terms of the intangible cultural heritage is that due to the dryness of the soil, the individuals and the populations that are living within this region are unable to further replace or restore these structures, which is an annual practice. Again, we can just see how something as simple as a drought or even having drier temperature conditions than usual can have a very destabilizing effect on the population, especially in Mali, where the site is located. And then this brings us to closer to home. We had the devastating floods in 2022 in KwaZulu-Natal. There was a significant loss of human life. These events of flash floods and extreme weather conditions have been further exacerbated over the years due to changing climate. The main impact, of course, is that these areas that have been constructed and the cultural heritage resources that are located close to them were never built around having this level of moisture. And of course, as you can see on the image on the left, they were never built to sustain this level of humidity or rainfall. So therefore, again, just as you can imagine, within South Africa, which has a massive coastline, and also a lot of shipwrecks and underwater cultural heritage. There is a severe risk to those heritage resources. One of the cases which will be explored today is the Tatham Art Gallery, which is in KZN. And then we have wildfires, which have been a growing occurrence again within South Africa. A lot of us are aware of the fire that devastated the Yaga Reading Room at the University of Cape Town. This is, of course, was caused, as it has been established now, that the very dry conditions, which were not normal, and the rising high temperatures within Cape Town played a significant role to the devastation that happened at the Yaga Reading Room. There was a significant loss of archives within this reading room. And again, we can see a recurrence of this, as well as the fire that affected the Mostert Mill within the Western Cape. And this, of course, brings us to the impact on intangible heritage due to floods, as we saw in Mozambique earlier this year with the cyclone, again, due to the droughts, etc. This has a significant effect and it disrupts the rituals and festivals that are practiced by indigenous communities. The indigenous knowledge, which is normally used to basically be a mitigation measure against these events, is not as effective as it used to be because the indigenous knowledge was not developed in the context of rising temperatures and, of course, extreme weather events. The displacement of these populations due to these events has a significant impact on their ancestral connections to their native lands. So what is the way forward in terms of South Africa and Africa in terms of addressing these issues? Number one, we have to question or look at the conventional mode or the conventional understanding of sustainability. When we talk about sustainability, we normally talk about the social, environmental, and economic impact in terms of sustainability. We say that sustainability has to be socially equitable, it needs to be economically viable, and it has to be environmentally bearable. But we in the heritage community have to place cultural sustainability at the center of sustainable development. Our role is to, of course, consider the social sustainability, the economic viability, and the environmental tolerance of development. But we can see that there is a lack in the literature, especially in Africa, looking at cultural sustainability. So what we need to do, as I've said earlier, there is a paucity of research within the African context, which is why we're happy to have you here joining us today within the heritage sector as academic, cultural institutions. We want to encourage you to start focusing on research that looks at cultural sustainability in the face of the climate threat. There has to be continuous monitoring of our cultural resources in order to see the impact of these changing conditions. We have to become more resilient, and that is going to be done through adaptation. Again, we have not been within this context globally or within Africa. Therefore, we have to have adaptive measures in order to mitigate against these climate crises. And of course, there is a lack of policy integration as well as legislative frameworks that speak explicitly to climate change. There has to be, of course, community engagement so that the tangible and intangible heritage that is cherished by these communities can be further protected. And there has to be rigorous documentation of these resources and of these practices, research, etc., on these resources. So our small contribution this Heritage Month is to focus on four case studies. That will be the Tatham Art Gallery in KwaZulu-Natal, which was affected by a flood, the Castle of Good Hope, which we will be looking at how we can basically better the material analysis in order to be more resilient in the face of the climate crisis. We will look at Robben Island and their disaster and risk management framework, which is groundbreaking on the South African, in South Africa and maybe even the African continent in terms of having a rigorous and resilient framework for disaster management. We will look at the Jagersfontein pit disaster in the Free State. And then we are going to look at how strategic heritage assessments can contribute and assist us in terms of the climate crisis. So this is our, again, very small step towards addressing these issues within the African continent. But we are so grateful to you all for joining us as we embark on this journey of addressing the climate threat on the African continent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ben, for that insightful overview. And just to introduce Ben, he is a Senior Manager for Heritage Conservation Management. Ben, just a question from me. What is your first memory of heritage? And how do you think it has changed now due to the effects of climate change?
I think my first memory of heritage takes me back to actually Malawi, where I encountered the mud brick and thatch houses. And as a result of the changing climate, those structures are unable to be restored. The local populations that use, again, the mud brick due to drought and desertification are unable to source the material which basically those structures are constructed of. And this is, again, quite important because there is a tangible structure, which is the mud brick and thatch housing itself. And then there is the impact on the intangible practice of building and restoring these structures every year. And we can think of that, again, I'm using one small example, but this is happening on a continental scale.
Yeah, because I'm seeing it now, this whole spectrum that you mentioned, the sea level drought, this is happening within South Africa, that is all being experienced. So that spectrum is, wow, I did not think of that. And I do like that you mentioned that this is a dual experience of tangible and intangible. We cannot separate the two. It's a dual experience. So please, if there are any comments or questions, please raise your hands. You can, if you may, as well as put them in the chat, and we'll allow that. Thank you. So noting that there are no comments or questions, that is possibly because you did too well. We thank you for that, friend. So noting that, we will move on to our next presentation, and we are, wow, very much on time, unexperienced for me. So we will move on to the Tatham Gallery. We have Ms. Tuli Saleko and Ms. Bethany Meyer that will be presenting, but we will give them 5 minutes just to set up as they are presenting virtually. So at, I'll say 25 to, we'll be back, and thank you guys. Thank you, Kim.
Hi, this is Bethany Meyer. I am the intern that's going to be presenting. My manager is just in the building right now, and I'm trying to get her to come because we're early. So
no, that's no worries. That is partially our fault for being too early, but that is okay. So Bethany, just speaking to you, Tatham Art Gallery is a historic place. You know, it's housed in the old Supreme Court building, and it is opposite, I believe it's the Pietermaritzburg City Hall, so it's a beautiful space and a beautiful place. Just working there, what do you think is one artwork that everyone should see when visiting Tatham?
Oh, that is a very difficult question. That we have some very interesting artworks. One that I'm very glad to have seen, but has scarred me for life because I saw it when I was a child, was Jane Alexander's Stricto Yes Girl, which is a very powerful piece about feminism and the objectification of women in society. Another one, which I think everyone should see if they get a chance to, is the Willie Bester Bench, which is a very interesting multimedia piece, which I think shows how, one, it's got a very powerful message on apartheid and forced removals, and two, shows how different art can be from what people most commonly think of with art. It's static paintings, whereas this is a whole installation and experience. So you've got the bench itself, and then you've got inside the bench, and it's a very interesting piece. And the gallery has so many interesting artworks, and we have so many different exhibitions on throughout the year.
What is the current exhibition being held?
We have a very interesting exhibition in our Shriner Gallery, which is our side gallery at the moment. It is by the Africa South Art Initiative, they did a collaboration with a couple different printmaking schools. And this one is just the collaboration with the CVA at UKZN. And so 10 different artists learned about reduction printmaking. And we've got all their artworks on display, along with an article that was written about each artist and artwork.
Not to offer any spoilers, but will you be speaking about the After the Flood exhibition as well?
No, not the exhibition, unfortunately.
Okay.
Okay, my manager's here, so let me see if I can share my screen and then we can get started.
Thank you very much. Yeah, please introduce yourselves to everyone and promote them as much, because I do think we need to visit that place. I do need to visit as I haven't been. Thank you, Bethany. Over to you guys.
Okay, I hope that we're on the first slide.
Yes, you are visible. Thank you.
Okay, great. So, good morning and thank you for being here today. My name is Bethany Meyer, and with me is my manager, Tulisiwe Mselepo at the Tatham Art Gallery. I'm going to be presenting first. I am an intern here at the Tatham Art Gallery. I have a Bachelor of Journalism degree with a major in art history and visual culture. I am going to be presenting on our topic, Learning from a Disaster to Protect Art Heritage in the Tatham Art Gallery. In May of 2017, the Tatham Art Gallery experienced a flood event that damaged 427 artworks and frames in their basement storage facility. The flooding was caused because of municipal strikers that cut power to several municipal buildings, including the gallery. The gallery was left without power for 54 hours. The gallery was built over an underground stream and has a pump that was designed to pump out the stream water and an alarm system set to go off if the water rose above a certain level. However, without electricity, both of these preventative measures failed. After the flooding was found, they had to move the artworks out of the basement and contact several specialists to help prevent further damage and to repair and restore as many of the gallery's artworks as possible. First, the gallery got hold of Estelle Liebenberg-Barkhuizen, a paper conservator who joined the gallery staff in preserving and restoring the paper artworks that had been damaged. Secondly, they managed to contact Eckhard Hans, an art conservator who could give them advice.
Sorry, Bethany, sorry to interrupt. Could you please put your presentation in presentation mode?
In what way? Sorry.
Please go to the button and second tab, say the second button from your scroll.
Yeah. Slideshow. No, this
Yes,
one.
slideshow.
Is it moving now?
One moment.
I need to assist in.
Yeah.
No, it's fine.
Yes, it is. Thank you. Thank you, Bethany.
Okay, so for that is the flooded basement. This is them pumping out water. And now this is where, almost where we are. Okay. Secondly, they managed to contact Eckhard Hans, an art conservator who could give them advice on what to do about the damaged paintings. This included keeping them flat so less paint would be lost due to peeling, until he could arrive and properly begin the restoration process. The gallery was lucky that the Pietermaritzburg art community came together to help where they could with the moving and restoration process. Otherwise, a lot more of the artworks may have been permanently lost. As tragic as this incident was, it did highlight the need for the gallery to upgrade its current systems and create backups in case of power outages. This included adding new equipment and upgrading current infrastructure.
Bethany, sorry, Bethany, one moment. Because the slides aren't working, we'll have Ben, who has your presentation, present on your behalf. So if you want to move to the next slide, he will just say next slide and he'll do it for you. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Thank you. Sorry for the interruptions.
It's okay.
And they just share the slides.
Yes.
Bethany, is the slides available to you? Can you see it?
I can see it. Could you shift to the slide that has the diesel generator on it?
Is that it?
One more, a couple more slides. Yeah, perfect.
Here, please continue.
The gallery started by commissioning a diesel generator as a power backup. The generator services the whole gallery as well as the water pump systems. This generator can potentially power the gallery for up to 24 hours. And additional preventative measures were the purchase of an independent petrol pump. Next slide, please. In case the backup generator either failed or the power went out for longer than 24 hours. The gallery has also worked to include their aircon and pump service providers, Action Air, and their generator service provider, Doozy Electrical, in their action plans in case another flooding event occurs. This lets everyone know the correct responses and procedures during a similar event. This new equipment was an important part of the gallery's preventative plan. However, the storage area also needed improvement. Next slide, please. To do this, the gallery expanded its basement storage area so that there is now an additional 80 meters of storage racks. And they converted a basement workroom into extra artwork storage and added a new fire suppression system. Next slide, please. The gallery storage policy has also been updated so that all the storage racks must be raised to 0.5 meters off floor level. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. All the measures listed above were specifically implemented because of the 2017 flood. However, the gallery realizes it needs to continue to improve its infrastructure to preserve its collection, especially as climate change makes conditions more unpredictable. Climate change has disrupted water availability a lot, especially in the last couple of years. Water is integral to keeping the gallery's air conditioning systems running to keep the gallery at a consistent temperature, which helps in preserving the artworks. To prevent water availability from disrupting the gallery's storage integrity, the gallery integrated water from the underground stream into the gallery's air conditioning system. Next slide, please. However, the gallery does not only struggle with water shortages and how that affects preserving artistic heritage, but also, like the flood in 2017, excess water is another big struggle. The Tatham Art Gallery is a Victorian building that was completed in 1871 and is over 150 years old. Unfortunately, due to the complexity of its roof design, gallery staff have been fighting a losing battle with leaks for the last 20 years or so. This problem has been exacerbated in the last couple of years as heavy rain and windstorms have become more frequent. Next slide, please. The continuous leaks have affected the gallery in a number of ways. Structurally, the roof and other structural components need regular repairs in order to keep the gallery functional. Next slide, please.
That's the manager.
The water damage also affects the gallery's ability to host exhibitions. There are several display walls where the artworks have had to be permanently removed due to wall leaks. It has also affected some of the gallery's storage areas, which has required the gallery to create makeshift storerooms. This can make retrieving artworks difficult, and that can delay exhibitions. Although the Tatham Art Gallery is committed to fully repairing the roof, several logistical aspects make it difficult. As a heritage building, the gallery needs to consult with AMAFA, the heritage statutory body in KwaZulu-Natal, before they make any changes, which makes it hard to do more than make small repairs. The tiles which would be needed to make repairs were imported and have been discontinued, so sourcing them is difficult. The gallery would also need to find an expert on restoration and repair of both heritage and Victorian buildings. Despite these difficulties, there is ongoing work to organize the full repair and restoration of the roof. However, it will be slow due to the logistical reasons listed above. I hope you have found my part of this presentation on the Tatham Art Gallery's continued efforts to make sure a disaster like the 2017 flood never happens again, and the ways we are trying to adapt to the challenges of climate change. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I will now hand over to the gallery's manager, Tulisiwe Msaleko, who will talk more about policy and our relationship with AMAFA and answer any questions you might have.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Tulisiwe Msaleko. I'm the manager at Tatham Art Gallery and Theatres. Let me just apologize that I think technology is letting me down here. My battery has just went off and I'm trying to charge, it's not charging. But what I was planning to talk about is the challenges that we have trying to renovate the buildings, the heritage buildings. Which is called AMAFA, and they are responsible in conserving and the preservation and administering any heritage sites in the province. Every heritage site needs to be registered with them, and they go as far as grading. I'm not going to talk about AMAFA because I'm not working there, but I just want, they have the section or the units, subunits that is dealing with. So it's a building environment section. And in that section, that's when, those are the people that we work with when we are trying to renovate. So if the building is over 60 years, it is registered as a heritage building. So you don't have to do any renovations or any alterations that you may like to do in the building without consulting them. They are constituted according to Heritage Act, KZN Heritage Act, and also Cultural Institutions Act. So they are just a constitutional body that we need to follow. We need to comply with them whenever we are renovating. So in my experiences, I've been to this gallery and we are having a challenge. I hope you heard my colleague trying to explain how old is our building. For all the years I've been here, for 4 years now, we've been trying to fix up our building. Because Tina, we do understand which we've got a collection, and the collection that we are having in the gallery, it's priceless. And for us to renovate or to fix whatever that is the roof that is leaking, and also we have to consult with other subunits and other departments people who are not involved in heritage fraternity, who does not have an understanding that how we do our work. So that causes, besides AMAFA, they are heritage body, so they do understand well, and they have their own policies that we have to follow or we have to comply with for us to fix these institutions. So my worry is that our museum is under municipality. So when we jump to say we want to renovate, we want to fix our roof because it's leaking, and we want to fix we want to put to add more resources that can assist when we have flooding, we always have to communicate with those people, and those people, they may not understand the agents of the crisis that we are having at that time as much as we would like them to understand. So there's a lot that is, I think I don't know how we can make it out there. If ever, I know other museums, they are under public works, but maybe we need to have our voice heard somewhere there in the Department of Public Works. They need to understand, one, contractors, they don't want to register with so many things, like a contractor, an assessor who's gonna come and assess our building and the river needs to be registered with AMAFA. And most people, they don't like that because they tend to think which they have to pay more tax, or there will be some payments that they need to pay for them to be registered with that. And it's important that we work with people who are qualified, who understand how is happening, so that we preserve our heritage accordingly. So we have those challenges that when we communicate with our principals or so-called principals or our senior management, they don't understand our situation, to say we are looking for somebody who understands this building, who I'm telling you, if this building is for 1918, the roof tiles that are up there, we no longer have them because they were imported from another country, from Europe, and we no longer have them in South Africa. And to fix the roof itself, and I hope all of us, we have noticed which in the past few years we have been having natural disasters and the heavy storms coming up, hailstorms and all this. So we couldn't get the real tiles that are fitting when we were trying to patch up. And the AMAFA, they are very strict. They are very strict on the material that you are using when you are renovating or you're fixing. They want all the material needs to be the conservative one, the one that can conserve the building. So to go through all those, there's a lot of administration and there's a lot of waiting. We have to wait. If the material is being sourced overseas, you have to wait for a certain time while the damage is still working. Some of the damages, we have been having it in the gallery for years, just because the supply chain, the supply chain is somehow complicating and is delaying. We have to have assessors coming here, and people, they must approve some of the material that we are using. So it's not an easy thing, and I think we need to let this be known by our principal or some people who are taking decisions when it comes to that material. I think webinars like these ones, we need to have a lot of them, and we need to talk about our buildings as museum buildings, because most of the time museum buildings are just the old buildings. We just, given the old buildings, it's just few number of museums that are new that we are receiving right now, like Legacy Projects one, and also the latest museum that have been built. So if we can just work into looking towards that, I'm not sure whether all the provinces are having a body like Hamafa, like we do have in KZN. I would recommend we do have those bodies because they assist in preserving our heritage, and they assist in making fixing up our buildings and maintaining and preserving for future purposes. And we just need to comply with them, though it's taking a lot of time when we are running those processes, but it's very important that we do them so that we can preserve our things. So like us, our building is over the river, Msunduzi River, and also we are having also a challenge that the roof is leaking now because it's old. And my colleague here has been mentioning about us providing a generator in the pumps. And now we are even thinking, we are still in the process. We haven't finished. We haven't even not halfway. We're just to finalize this issue to make sure that we are ready for any disaster that might come anytime. So we were just talking last month to say we need also to add solar panels so that we don't rely on the generator, because we find out that the generator will need to be serviced almost every time, must be maintained every month, and that is also expensive. So I think if we can just move also, now we are planning to add the solar panels as our backup system, so that because we experience with
Okay, so I think we lost, because she did state that a battery was also technology. The robots are rising up against us, but that is okay. There is a comment in the chat, and it says AMAFA has been waiting for several years for the application to be submitted in full. The delay is on the municipal side, not AMAFA. So I'm not sure if the Tatum is able to respond to that comment. There is a hand raised. Ross Devereaux, can you please go ahead and speak.
Thanks. The building is a very complex building. It's and the roof is quite complex, and it's different materials, but it has a lot of box gutters and other elements like valley gutters and so on that need to be cleaned out and need to be repaired. So a lot of the problem is not simply on the bit of roof that is slate tile, but it's also affected by maintenance. And as for the underground water, I mean, this is a climate change session. The water table rises and falls. When they were converting the art gallery back in the 1980s, I was concerned that they were building a basement storage because of the need for pumps and the need for electricity to pump that water out. So of course the municipal strike highlighted that problem there. But climate change will result in the underground water table dropping and can cause other problems, such as in the building in which I am also sitting on an underground water table, and that rises and falls, and our building cracked as a result of that, because Maritzburg is also built on shale. So it's there are a number of problems that are not necessarily simply the 1861 completed 1875 building. Thanks.
Thank you, Ross, for that comment. Just my question for Marfa, if I may. How does Marfa feel about buildings evolving? You know, because we do know that, take them as they stated, this is a building from 1871 Victoria. Some of the materials are no longer in stock. So at what point are buildings allowed to evolve and take on new character?
We haven't had the application yet. We had an assessment that was done by a professional assessor who had worked with National Trust in the UK, and but they didn't complete the application. So they haven't come back to us and said, we can't get this material, we can't get this particular skill or whatever. So we are open to looking at alternates, obviously, because the building needs to be sustainable.
Please continue. Oh, she's done. Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
they're saying the building needs to be sustainable. It is a grade 2 heritage. It's here under our legislation. It's called provincial landmark. So it does have to comply to a higher standard than a building that's 60 years old. But we have been looking at alternate materials for other grade 2 sites.
Thank you, Ross, for that. Just to inform everyone in presentation that Tatham Gallery, the power wall has shut, so they have no power. So that is an unfortunate that they are unable to respond. But we do note Matita's hand there, so Matita, please go ahead.
Just raise your hands so that they will see you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think part of the discussion, and it relates to my question. It's on the interim measures that can be implemented to prevent the damage that actively happens while awaiting compliance. I think that's what I picked up from the presentation, that while they are waiting for approvals for this tile that may not be available in South Africa, it must be sourced elsewhere. The rain will not wait for those things to be sourced. It will continue to rain, and the weather will continue to impact the fabric of the building. And maybe my question is really on sort of what interim solutions can be found, particularly with heritage infrastructure that's being impacted by climate, to say if this was made in the 1800s and it's not produced anyway, it must be custom made. That may take up to a year, and that's a variation of seasons. You may have extremely rainy, you may have extremely hot, etc., etc. That may have an impact on the heritage fabric. What measures perhaps could be put in place as interim solutions while awaiting compliance matters to be addressed? Thanks.
Thank you, Matita. And we do note that Tatham is back. So if Tatham has any response to the previous questions and comments that were made, please go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, we just went out of electricity. We had a lot of shedding. I don't know whether it's a lot of shedding or what. I had only one question. The other one I think I picked up what is talking about sustainability. That's what I had. But with the interim solution, in our case, fortunately enough, there was a gentleman here by the name of Mr. Osborne, who used to know all about, I think he has been working with the architects, or he was an architect. It's just that I saw him once, he's late now. But he used to understand all the buildings in the city the old buildings in the city because he has worked with them, most of them. So, and he has been working with AMAFA as well. So we had him coming to the gallery, especially most after each and every disaster or after rains. We will request him to come, and then he will come and have a look at the damage and the stuff, and he will understand what kind of material that we need for that time. But what I was just thinking all by myself was, even if when we experience these things, as I've said in the presentation, was the main problem is that these people who are looking for compliance too much, they don't understand. Like our SCM people, they are just administrators, but they don't understand what we must do. So if ever we can have something somewhere we can discuss and engage with the principals, the big offices, and then we do the report, we write a report, we request that on the people who are busy with the infrastructure, who are working with infrastructure like public works and those ones, they need to consider heritage building. So they must, in their policies, in their implementations, they must make sure all the time they do have materials that are talking to heritage institutions. And even if they can have a subunit that is dealing with heritage buildings or heritage infrastructure or old infrastructure, in terms of preserving it, I think they need to have architects that are registered as heritage practitioners, whom they understand about heritage buildings, so that when we have a disaster in a certain museum or any certain building, they will just respond to that disaster as quick as possible, while the material is always around. They need to be informed. In a province, a certain museum is using this kind of material. That should be in their files, in their offices. They must know about it. So when there is a disaster there, they will be prepared. How are they going to fix things up? Even if things cannot be fixed in a way, like no one was expecting the strike, just the strike, a normal strike that is done by the workers can cause such a disaster. And I'm telling you, it was a huge disaster for the gallery. So, but we need to be ready all the time. After that, I don't know whether we mentioned something like we had an alarm system that is telling us when the water rises to a certain level, just when the water is just coming up somewhere to a certain level, so the alarm goes off. And then we had also a response. So anyway, we do have a 24-hour security that is always standing in the gallery. So they had to respond to that when all the time when the alarm is coming off. And then there is a small pump. We've got a temporary pump. My colleague showed you earlier on. That pump, we use it if there is a flood. This is the one that we use. It's just a mobile one. You can take it like a generator, like a small generator, and we put the hose pipe. So we pumped out water from the building and we take it out. The pipe is too long that we can just take it from the basement to upstairs when we are pumping water if there is a flood down there. So you need to have things like those ones online to say if there is something, everyone knows what you have to go and get the generator, where to get the hose pipe, how to start the generator. The security officers, they know personnel, how they know what to do while somebody is making a phone call to say there's something happening in the gallery, but the generator is where anybody can just see it. They will be just putting things together and try and pump water out of the building. But we pump water just outside to the drain, to the drainage, to the normal drainage that is around the gallery. So those are just interim solutions that we are trying in the gallery now. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Tatham, for the response. We do have one more question from Heritage Objects Unit Manager, Ms. Leo Miller, who is here today, so she'll ask that question directly. Thank you.
Thank you, Keenan. Thank you so much, Ms. Mseleku, on that response. I think what Mr. Madida introduced was quite essential because compliance matters does not slow down any deterioration that does affect heritage resources. And hence my comment in the chat section to actually ask, it would be interesting if Tatham can comment on if there's been any condition change on the actual artworks itself. Part of my interest is to understand with old museums and the building, much of it, there's been concern on the actual structure itself. But it would be interesting to start also including a conversation on how do these structures in turn affect what is housed in them, and to also start having a discussion on what are the measures that we, or studies or trends that we are starting to see of climate change affecting heritage objects or even movable heritage resources, because often the evidence is there on a physical structure, but the damage is usually seen way later when it comes to heritage objects, and largely because of storage capacity, the manner of storage. Hardly do we see most of these studies now starting to look at what is exactly the effects of these changes within the objects that, or the material in which they're housed, particularly when it comes to museums. So if Tatham can give us a comment on if this is something to be explored and something that should constantly be raised, or if the changes are so small that they not necessarily contribute to the broader discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Can you hear me? Is that turn on? Okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question. As you were asking your question, so many things came to my mind, so I need to breathe in and out. Okay. Firstly, even after that flooding incident that happened in 2017, we've been having heavy rains. As we are saying, the building is old. It's just that we couldn't put all the photos, but we have photos at one stage, I think in 2023. Now, when I was here, we had a hailstorm, which took almost 30 minutes. Yeah, it was not long, but it was very heavy. And the gutters in the roof are made in a way that they are like a small path. You walk on them. As you have seen me on the day that it's me who's in the photos that my colleague has shown you. On that day, we were going up to the roof and looking for this. So we had to call fire because while the hailstones, ice were just dropping in the gutters, they tend to block everything, and water couldn't go out to the drain. Instead, it was just coming inside the ceiling board here, all over the building. So that water was going straight to the artworks that are being displayed, especially upstairs. Fortunately, it happened during the day. We were at work, and we quickly moved the artworks from the wall and placed them wherever they could get help. But we realized that the whole roof is damaged, and that hailstorm was caused by the climate change. I know for sure it was caused by climate change. And secondly, while we were moving, some of the artworks got damaged. We had to call the conservator thereafter. We paid a lot of money paying conservators, just trying to conserve those artworks. Just out of the water that was coming. If you come to our gallery now, you can see there is a lines on the wall for the water that is coming from above, from the roof. So, I mean, like, there is a big damage, a huge damage. In a number of artworks that were damaged during the floods, 2017 floods, I think there are 3 artworks that we couldn't save. I think 2 or 3 artworks, we couldn't save them. Even if the conservators came in, but there was nothing much to do just to save them. So this is making a huge impact in the artworks. Our main purpose is to preserve this for future generations as well. But yeah, we're ending up getting so much damages. And the fact that we are having a river stream that is going underground. There is a pit where my colleague showed you, and there are 3 pumps. I think you saw the 3 pumps and the photos. On the right-hand side from those pumps, there's a pit where the river is streaming through the gallery. So that's where the floods are coming out from. And in winter, most of the time, there will be this steam. You see, if it's winter, you come in early in the morning, you feel the gallery is very cold because there is this evaporation that is happening. And most of the artworks are being molded, are having mold right now because we've just lived winter and they are having mold, especially the woodworks, and the other one are just catching up mold. But we try, and between the plant itself, where there are pumps and everything, the doors that we've put there, we've put the safety doors. But at times when we had floods, those safety doors, they just get damaged at the bottom there underneath. And with that, so all the time when we have a disaster, when we have floods and we get the doors got damaged, we have to change them after the disaster. Every time we have to change them after the disaster. So we've just changed them now. And for fire protection, we have just put on the fire protection in the, because where the pumps are, or where the river streams, is just in the same level and as our collection. The way we don't have space here, I find when I get here, that space was designated for a collection, especially for artworks, paper artworks, which is fine arts most of the time. So because it's there, so all the time we need to have climate control, we need to have our dehumidifier, because humid that is coming from the river, it just can spoil our artworks. But it's still, we are still in the process. I think it's a never ending process, because we must keep these things alive. zikhona for future purposes. I'm not sure whether I've answered the questions correctly.
Thank you for that response, Ms. Msaleko. We do have one more question from Neville Keteldas. Neville, you may proceed with your question.
Hi, good day, sir. How are you? Hi, everyone. I would just like to emphasize on the previous speaker. I think it was Ms. Leomele, where she spoke about artwork that needs to be preserved. I take it from my side. I'm based in Grahamstown Satellite Office, the Algo. Opposite me, I have the Albany Museum. And here by us, it's an old prison. So with climate change, we need to take into consideration that these buildings are quite old. Many of them were built with the settlers. So ventilation wasn't taken into consideration. So on a hot day and suddenly the weather starts to act up and it will start raining. So it will get a lot of misty inside or the temperature change inside. So all the artwork will start getting sweat on. And once that sweat dries with the humidity that changes with inside a room temperature, then you start to see over time artwork starts to get brittle. And once it gets brittle, it's hard to get it, how can I put it, to recover or repair it again at the end of the day. The same goes with our cells also here. The cells are closed throughout the days, and I go on certain days to open up and clean up. And when I do open up, you can smell the dampness. And then more especially, we also have like a underwater, ek gaan dit in Afrikaans sê, jammer, bergwater.
Water.
Bergwater, like natural water that comes out of the mountains here by us. So we experience this a lot here, and it's something that I have noticed. So in order, even for the museum on the other side, with the underwater river that's flowing, we need to get a land surveyor in so that we can redirect or channel the water and have it reused again in other places where it's needed. It's something to look at, because at the end of the day, it's damaging our structures also, and it's making it unbearable. If I had answered the question, thank you. Sorry, guys.
Thank you, Neville, for that emphasis. And I see, Mr. Hubert, you have comments in the comment section, and they're all duly noted. And it's part of the reason why, this scenario with Tetham was quite important for us to bring to the fore. You speak of permanent solutions. I'd be very interested to hear from your context specifically, what solutions do you think are glaring, given SARA is a legislative body, and also from a conservation and museum perspective, that we may be overlooking or think that should be part of the conversations moving forward? And I think from that point, that would be the last comment.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief. From our context, being NARC, so the National Arms and Ammunition Confederation of South Africa, the Collectors Associations, we've had a real challenge at the castle in Cape Town, where damp have damaged some of those artifacts beyond repair, to the point where we had to remove them into another facility. And it's all as a result of a broken air conditioner that went undetected for months. So, yeah, so coming back to the permanent solution, I mean, dehumidifiers have been mentioned, and also where these artifacts are placed. We all know these buildings are not new, these buildings are old, but I mean, the problem from a damp point of view, if there's an underground river running, the river is not new, it's always been there. So the problem has always been there. So, and hence my comment about a more permanent solution being sought after rather than just installing a sump pump. It's not going to resolve the issue of the inherent moisture content. So I think we just need to look at it a bit more holistically.
Thank you, Hubert, for that comment, and thank everyone who contributed to that lovely discussion that we had. I do think more needs to be done, you know, just echoing what Hubert said. We hope to be more proactive and reactive and find solutions for long term. So thank you, Tatum, for your presentation. We do appreciate you taking the time. We will take a 5-minute break to set up our next presentation. So we will see you in 5 minutes. Thank you, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you, everyone. Our next presenters are from the Cape Peninsula University of Technology. It's not kaput. They are not done. They are underway. And I am a little jealous because they did exclude me from the fashion coordination. As you can see, they are both. Yeah, I wasn't included in that. But that is good. So these are future engineers and future world builders that we have presenting here today. And going first, we have Ms. Naledi Nyatela, and then we have Fayad Stober, who will be presenting. So they will be presenting, and then afterwards we will have Q&A for both sessions. So Ms. Naledi, you can go ahead, but you can introduce yourself and tell us more about you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. So our historic buildings, they are not just structures. They are part of our identity and cultural memory. They carry the stories of who we are, where we come from, and what we hope to pass on. But many of these buildings are at risk. The very materials that hold them together, especially lime mortars, they weaken over time. Good morning, everyone. My name is Naledi Nyatela, an honors student in civil engineering at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology. And I'll be presenting my research titled Role of Natural Pozzolans in Enhancing Lime-Based Heritage Mortars. So lime-based mortars have been used for centuries in historic masonry because they allow moisture transfer, accommodate movement, and they bond very well with traditional materials like stone and handmade bricks. So these qualities, they make them very ideal for heritage conservation as they allow moisture to escape, they adapt to structural movement and avoid harmful reactions that can happen with modern cement mortars. So, but over time, lime mortars, they break down. They are affected by weather, salt deposits, moisture, and pollution, leading to cracking, erosion, and loss of strength. So in the past, people have often replaced them with modern cement, but this creates a new problem. Cement is too rigid, so it traps moisture and it often damages the historic masonry that it was meant to protect. So when restoring old buildings, it's not just about replacing the mortar, it's about doing it in a way that respects the original structure, which is using materials that are physically, chemically, and visually compatible, but also strong enough to handle today's environmental conditions. So that's where natural pozzolans come in. Natural pozzolans, these are reactive materials that when they're added to lime, they form extra cementitious compounds that make the mortar stronger, more durable, and less porous, while still keeping the breathable, flexible qualities that are essential for heritage work. So this research basically looks at how different natural pozzolans can enhance lime mortars so that we can restore historic structures in a way that's both effective and respectful. So what makes this exciting is that pozzolans are natural. They are widely available and low in carbon compared to cement. In fact, they can reduce the need for high energy materials, making conservation more environmentally friendly. It's a way of blending heritage, wisdom with modern sustainability goals. So the main research question driving this project is how do pozzolans affect lime mortar properties? So the aim is to identify formulations that provide better mechanical and durability performance while still aligning with the requirements of historic masonry restoration. So to answer this, I've defined three main objectives. which is one, to investigate the effect of natural pozzolan on the workability properties of lime-based mortars, to also investigate the effect of the natural pozzolan on now the strength of these lime-based heritage mortars, and also investigate their effect on the durability properties of the lime-based heritage mortars. So I will be testing 3 natural pozzolans, which is bentonite, calcinated clay, and metakaolin. So each pozzolan will partially replace lime at 10%, 20%, and 30% by weight of the binder. So these specific percentages, they are selected based on findings from past research, which shows that a 10% replacement, it offers the 10% replacement basically often provides minor improvements with minimal changes to the mortar's traditional behavior. And then 20% is considered like a balanced point, basically, where the strength now and durability gains, they become more noticeable. And then at 30%, it tests the upper limit of the pozzolan substitution, beyond which the mortar may now start to behave like a hydraulic mix, compromising heritage compatibility. So testing across this range, it helps to identify the optimal performance and historical integrity. So in addition to pozzolan percentages, I will also use 2 binder to sand ratios, which is a 1:1, which is now a rich mix. It's very high in binder content. This type of mix, it may offer better workability and cohesion, and is often used in fine plastering or detailed restoration. And I'll also use 1:3, which is now a much leaner and more traditional mix. It's more commonly used in masonry construction. It represents a more economical and historically accurate formulation. So by testing both these ratios, I can assess how pozzolans behave in different practical scenarios and whether their benefits are consistent across all mix types. And finally, I will have a control mix of 0% pozzolan, which will be tested alongside of all my samples, which basically will provide a baseline for comparison and help to quantify how much performance changes when the pozzolans now are introduced. So the testing methodology that I use is basically divided into 3 parts, which is the rheological part, the mechanical testing phase, and the durability testing phase. For rheological testing, we'll be assessing the workability and setting behavior of fresh mortar, which is a rational rheometer with a vane spindle will measure yield stress, plastic viscosity, and low flow currents. Under a control shear protocol, setting time will be measured using a Vicat apparatus to evaluate how pozzolans affect RDH reactivity. And I'll also do mechanical testing, which basically involves casting 100 millimeter cubes for compressive and flexural strength tests. So this will be done at 7, 14, and 28 days. And then all specimens will now be cured at 27 plus or minus 2 degrees and 95% humidity to support optimal pozzolanic reaction and to reduce cracking. And then finally, durability testing, including water absorption, sulfate resistance, and freeze-thaw cycles. These tests will stimulate moisture ingress, chemical attack, and thermal stress, giving us a well-rounded picture of our long-term performance of these natural pozzolans. So from these tests, basically, I expect to identify a few practical mixes. 1, mixes that improve strength and resist moisture damage, mixes that keep the mortar breathable and flexible, and also mixes that are easy to mix and that we can apply in real restoration projects. And lastly, mixes that use locally available or low-cost natural materials where possible. And also, after I'm done, this mix can be recommended to conservators, masons, and municipal heritage officers for trial repairs with the aim of scaling successful recipes across similar sites. So, this work is not just academic, it has real local benefits, and I'm just going to highlight a few. So with this work that I'm trying to do, at the end of it, it can help the heritage structures in terms of now when you use these mixes, we might have stronger, longer lasting repairs, which means that fewer interventions over time. And that's going to save money while preserving authenticity. And also, it can provide better resistance to salt and water, especially important for coastal areas and for buildings that are struggling with rising damp, like here in Cape Town, like Castle of Good Hope is right here. And also they can, using natural materials that are locally available, it supports sustainability and it keeps our suppliers involved and it keeps traditional craft skills alive. And finally, we can have a clear practical guidance that empowers small heritage groups and local government to make informed decisions about their repairs. So all of this is grounded in well-established conservation principles, which is compatibility, minimal intervention, and reversibility. In other words, we are not replacing traditional mortars with cement. Instead, we are fine-tuning them, making small, thoughtful additions that will strengthen performance while still respecting the original fabric of the building. So the goal is simple: to give conservation practitioners evidence-based recipes and straightforward testing data that they can confidently use on real projects. So right now, I'm currently on the experimental phase of my research. I'm preparing my samples and running tests. And over the next few months, I expect to complete my durability trials and analyze the data and also identify the most promising mixes and collaborate with conservators and experienced masons to trial the best options on small restoration projects, and then also produce a short practical guide with recipes and handling notes. So this is where you guys basically come in. So if you're connected to a heritage site, a local museum, or a community group, there are a couple of simple but valuable ways in which you can support this work. Firstly, you can help by sharing local examples of mortar problems you've come across, things like your rising damp, your cell damage, or failed cement repairs. So these real life cases, they help ground the research and the challenges community are actually facing. And then secondly, if you have contacts with conservators or skilled masons, I'd be grateful if you'd connect me with them. Even a small test patch on a real building, it can provide insights that no lab experiment alone can actually deliver. So together, these contributions, they help to ensure that research doesn't just stay in theory, but it makes real practical difference on the ground. So to close, our historical buildings are fragile, yes, but when they are also resilient when they are taken care of properly. So by combining traditional knowledge with careful local research, we can ensure that these places are preserved in ways that are respectful, effective, and sustainable. So before I close, I'd like to sincerely thank my supervisor, Dr. Loke and Dr. Kumar, for their guidance and support throughout this research. I'm also grateful to my department and the Heritage Week organizers for giving me the opportunity to share this work with you today. And finally, thank you all for being here. And yeah, I'm very much open to questions, but I'll give it now to my colleague Fayyad, and then after that we can take questions. Thank you very much.
I think I need to take a break after that.
Okay, so while we wait for Fayyad to go ahead, thank you, Naledi, for that presentation. I will just say my knowledge of buildings and I guess engineering as a whole is limited to grand designs because I really like that show. But thank you for that, and also good luck with your research. And I hope that there are people within this presentation and webinar today that are able to offer you any opportunities that are there and openly available. Fayyad, if you are ready.
Just busy setting up and connecting to these PowerPoint.
Okay, you are ready for Fayyad. Yeah, introduce yourself and you may proceed.
Good day, everybody, respected doctors, professors, and fellow listeners. My name is Fayyad Stober. I'm a researcher at the Sustainable Heritage Team at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology. Adding on a little bit more about myself, I'm also a candidate engineering technologist with the Engineering Council of South Africa, and I'm a structural engineer at Zetori, formerly known as Oricon. Today, I will be presenting our research that explores how we can integrate modern technology to preserve our heritage. The title of today's research topic, Life Cycle Assessment and Conservation Strategies, a case study on the Castle of Good Hope. This is a quick overview of what I'll be covering today. We'll start with the background and objectives of the study, then move into the methodology and some current findings. After that, I will highlight the benefits of the study and share a few other projects from our research unit, and we'll wrap up with a conclusion and a Q&A session for both Naledi and I. Given a little bit of a background, the castle is not just a historic site, it's a cultural landmark, which is recognized as one of the 10 UNESCO World Heritage Sites in the country. But like many heritage structures, it faces challenges such as material decay and weathering and humanization. Traditionally, conservation has focused on preserving the physical structure, but what about its environmental footprint? This is where the concept of green heritage comes in, whereby this research steps in with a strategic approach to address both conservation needs and environmental sustainability. Diving into the research problem, our research team will investigate how we can use a data-driven approach by integrating life cycle assessment with modern-day technologies such as building information modeling, short for BIM, for the sustainable conservation of such heritage sites. So what exactly will this research entail? Let's have a look at the key objectives. Our objectives are designed to answer our research question: can a life cycle assessment and building information modeling be integrated to develop a sustainable conservation strategy for the Castle Guru? The first objective would be conduct a comprehensive literature review on life cycle assessments as a whole, explore sustainable materials, and applications of BIM in heritage conservation. This helps us understand the global practices and how they can be adapted to our local context. The second objective would be to develop a model using Autodesk Revit of the facade of the Castle Guru in order to digitally record its current state. Due to time constraints, we will only model 10 meters each way of the main entrance gate, as you can see in figure 2. This digital record is essential for green heritage as it reduces the need for physical interventions and provides a platform for simulating conservation strategies before implementation. The third objective would be to conduct a life cycle assessment through BIM application to evaluate the environmental impact of the Castle Guru over the course of its life cycle by measuring 3 metrics: the carbon footprint, material sustainability, and energy performance. Lastly, based on the life cycle assessment results, we will discuss recommendations for sustainable heritage conservation and environmental sustainability. But why is this important, and why are we carrying out a life cycle assessment? Because heritage conservation should not only prioritize the cultural value, but also minimize the environmental harm. The life cycle assessment gives us a data-driven approach to make informed decisions. You might be asking, why use building information modeling application for this? For those unfamiliar, BIM, building information modeling, is essentially a digital twin of the building. And it's a smart 3D model that doesn't just show what the structure looks like, but also stores critical data like material properties and energy performance. This allows us to run simulations and test conservation strategies virtually before making any physical changes, therefore saving time and reducing waste and supporting sustainability as a whole. For the methodology of this research, it follows a structured workflow grounded in a mixed method approach, specifically a qualitative approach. For the data acquisition, we will begin with gathering available historical records, architectural drawings, and conduct a site inspection of the castle. Thereafter, we will perform 3D modeling by developing a detailed 3D modeling of the castle's main gate facade using Revit. And I would just like to refer to figure 3. I would like to recognize the Zamani project, whom specially documented a 3D model of the entire castle in 2011, making efforts towards protecting heritage data. Thirdly, we will move on to the life cycle assessment analysis. In conducting the life cycle assessment, we will focus on the carbon dioxide emissions, material sustainability, and energy performance, utilizing Revit plugins such as Navisworks or Autodesk Insights. For the recommendations and conclusions, we will formulate recommendations for sustainable heritage conservation based on the life cycle assessment findings. Following the methodology, I would like to share the progress we've made so far at the Sustainable Heritage Research Team under 3 key areas. For the visual inspection, we began with an on-site visit to the Castle Guru to document its current condition. These images show the facade and areas of concern, which helps us understand material deterioration and environmental exposure. This step is crucial for green heritage as it ensures that any intervention is based on accurate real-world data rather than just assumptions. For the 3D modeling, we developed a detailed BIM model of the main gate facade using Revit. This digital representation allows us to apply material properties and simulate conservation strategies without physically altering the structure, thereby reducing waste and unnecessary interventions. A bit of a background, according to Robertson 1980 journal, the walls were mainly constructed of dressed Malmesbury slate bonded with lime mortar and are about 5 meters wide at ground level and about 8 meters high. The red brick capping was about 2 meters high and was added in 1830 by British garrison. And the third step of the current findings will be our sample analysis. We tested the life cycle assessment tool using a sample dataset to evaluate its efficiency and understand how outputs will be presented. And while these results are preliminary, they provide a framework for assessing the carbon footprint, material sustainability, and energy performance of the castle Guru. The next step is to refine this analysis using actual material properties from previous year's research on the original material of the castle's walls. This ensures that our sustainability recommendations are both accurate and practical. For the expected outcomes, this research is expected to produce a detailed 3D model of the castle's main gate facade, the first of its kind in South Africa. Thereafter, this project will also offer something new in the context of South Africa, which is a framework that merges digital heritage modeling and sustainability. It's a model that researchers, architects, and engineers, and even environmental specialists can all use to make it replicable and meaningful. And ultimately, the study aims to contribute to sustainable heritage by conducting the first BIM integrated lifecycle assessment of the Castle of Guru in its context. To conclude, this research sets out to explore how integrating lifecycle assessment and BIM can support the sustainable conservation of heritage structures. And by using the Castle of Guru as a case study, we're developing a replicable data-driven framework to measure the environmental impacts and guide future interventions to ensure that our heritage stands strong in a low-carbon and sustainable future. And through this advancement, this research doesn't just preserve history, it future-proofs it. Furthermore, this year, our Sustainable Heritage Research Unit is working on a whole host of research projects that align with the principles of green heritage in order to preserve cultural heritage and ensure environmental sustainability. Together, these projects aim to promote sustainable heritage conservation practices, ensuring that our cultural assets are preserved in harmony with environmental goals. Furthermore, I would like to acknowledge the reference utilized in this presentation, and I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the South African Heritage Resources Agency for the support throughout our research at the Sustainable Heritage Research Unit at CPUT, and a special thanks to the Castle of Guru for the access and cooperation to carry out our research and for hosting this insightful event. I would also like to extend my gratitude on behalf of the Sustainable Heritage Research Unit team at CPUT to all individuals and organizations who contributed to our research in ways that may not be explicitly mentioned here. Your support and through guidance, resources, or insights have been invaluable. And this brings us to the end of our presentation. I would like to thank the listeners in the panels and those on the live seminar. I'm now going to be open for any questions for Naledi and I.
Thank you, guys. That was a lovely presentation. Please just share your contact details in the chat so that people are able to contact you. If there are any questions or comments, please. We have one from Mr. Ben Masinga, who is luckily in the building, so he would just ask the question from here.
Thank you so much, Naledi and Fayad. I think your research is absolutely fantastic, groundbreaking, and certainly within the African context, we don't see research like this. And I think it is quite critical, again, because we are dealing with changing climate, we are dealing with disaster risk management, and in that context, it is important to have resilient solutions for these challenges. Now, Lady, my first question to you is, your model is currently looking at what we can call a formal structure.
Yes.
Is it applicable to indigenous heritage?
I think it's, should I respond now? Oh, hi. So it's very much applicable as long as they're using lime mortars, because my focus now is actually enhancing lime mortars. So if it's indigenous structures that were made by lime mortars, then it's very much applicable.
Okay, now my question to you then, next question would be, if resources were not a limit, how far would you push your research in terms of maybe replicating the suitable materials for use at a large scale?
There's very much material that is available. It's available at a very large scale. Even here, just here in South Africa, I think it's many different provinces. Every province has porcelains that are actually readily available that just need us to look into them and then research them more. And they can be applied literally at any scale, any bigger scale. They can be applied because they are materials that are already available, and they are very abundant materials as well.
Last question to you then is, of course, you now say that these materials are available within every context, within every region, province. When you're doing your literature review, did you find that there was a scarcity of research into these porcelains?
Yes, there's a very much low scarcity of research. I think people haven't been looking much into them, but I think it's a way that can actually drive us in South Africa, or the heritage, basically the heritage sector, basically so much, because it's materials that can improve our mortars a lot, and actually also in a way that is still sustainable to our environment and still promotes green building that does not harm our environment as well.
Thank you so much. And again, excellent research. I look forward to seeing your paper. And I think it's very important, again, for indigenous architecture and heritage as well, as much as we're looking at, of course, very old structures such as the castle. Fayad, also extremely groundbreaking research.
Thank you.
Absolutely fantastic. Again, I've not done at all in the African context. I haven't seen it being replicated anywhere else. In terms of the modeling that you're doing, how far could you push your research in terms of detecting potential future threats to sensitive structures?
Okay, so within the modeling, we apply material data sets. And so we are also able to forecast with the current materials used, how that acts over its lifetime. Basically, in conducting the life cycle assessment, it simulates how it acts over time. So if we were to, for example, change the material of the castle, let's say the entire castle is going to be brickwork, we can analyze the entire castle as brickwork, basically. We are also able to develop an analytical energy model of the castle. If we were to incorporate, let's say, the commercial portion, where we could optimize the HVAC system as well. But that would obviously be the role of mechanical engineers and such, but it is intervention for simulations that's vast.
All right, thank you so much. And then again, of course, we're looking at a very old formal structure. How would this research be applicable to indigenous architecture and heritage?
So I think that is definitely something that could be further explored. I think it could be applicable if this research was to be taken further. Due to time constraints at the moment, of course, we would just be focusing on heritage structures standalone. But it's definitely something that we could perhaps talk about. Anything?
All right, my last question. Again, similar to Naledi, if resources were not an issue, how far would you want to take your research? What is the ultimate end goal that you'd like to reach?
The ultimate end goal would be overall sustainability, I guess. I mean, 200 years from now, it would be really, we would have achieved our goal for those 200 years from now, in whichever year it is, for them to see this castle and whatever other heritage structure still standing, then we would have achieved our goal as a society, meeting the needs of the present without compromising the needs of the future generations.
Thank you so much. Brilliant, Lucas.
Thank you.
Thank you for the questions, Ben. We do have a hand raised from Mr. Robin George. Robin, you can proceed with your question.
Thank you very much, Fayyad and Naledi. Very interesting work that you guys are doing. Ben actually took part of the question out of my mouth already, but it's just pertaining to like prediction insofar as, are you guys maybe able to predict like I know it's difficult with heritage structures because they are old buildings, and I mean you'd never know when you essentially going to get a problem, but are you able to detect for example when certain things have to, or before certain things have to be replaced, or because I'm speaking from a built environment point of view, obviously it helps with doing predictions for knowing, okay, permits need to then be made, say next year, January, for argument's sake, and not, and that is also to avoid, say, parts of the structure falling into disrepair and to being damaged. So yeah, that's basically my question, but thank you. Very interesting work.
Want to take it?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you can go.
I think this is more based on his research, and with building information modeling and life cycle assessment, I think the direction that we're going into now is a direction whereby you can actually you can actually see, or you can actually foresee problems that are actually going to happen before they actually happen. I think the main goal behind the life cycle assessment and the building information modeling is for us to be able to foresee these problems and foresee the problems that are actually going to occur before they actually occur. So basically, when you have your building information modeling, it's going to show you when now your structure starts to deteriorate, or there's changes that would be detrimental to the building. So you basically try to stop the problem before it actually commences. Yeah.
So she answered. Okay. We do have comments in the chat from Apole Loki, which I believe is your supervisors. Apole, if you would like to just come in and provide comment to, I think your two lovely students who are presented here today, and also speak to the challenges you face with regards to sustainability and its research opportunities.
From design.
Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm joining in from an international conference on sustainable or structural analysis of historical constructions. So I'm representing South Africa in Switzerland. I'm sorry I couldn't be there physically. Thank you so much, Nadedi and Fayyad. We are very proud of you guys. And thank you so much, Ben and the team, for always involving us. Just to add, I typed this on the chat. I just stepped out of one of the sessions I'm attending here. Besides the fact that we really appreciate the efforts that Sarah is doing in terms of access, we have unlimited access on heritage sites, which is much appreciated. But when it comes to funding, I think even in our previous webinars, we've been saying that we've been pleading and requesting. Funding is a very huge problem. We would really, we are pleading, we are asking, we are on our knees begging. Because at the moment, Naledi has to chip from her stipend. I have to chip out some money from my salary. It's that, and it's not always the time or the case where you have funds waiting for Naledi to go and buy porcelains to test, or you have funds to transport Fayyad from campus to the castle to do the work. So really, funding is a huge issue when it comes to these projects. It kind of slows us down. And again, getting students, for us to get students to do this work, it's hard for a student to leave their work and come and focus on the research, which is the main thing. So we struggle to get students because of funding. So if there was really funding to help us to say, okay, if you're working on heritage structures, this is the funding that's available, your tuition, your accommodation, then we'll do more than what we are doing currently. So that's the main issue. But again, we truly have to also appreciate what CPUT is doing. In addition to us chipping from our pockets, CPUT will have some funding put aside to say, okay, you guys, this is the percentage we can assist with. So we really are calling upon the stakeholders to just come on board, and we all work towards sustainable heritage for our country. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mapole. Yeah, we echo that. You know, the theme this year is resilience, but we don't want to be that resilient. We are every year begging for funding, so we do hope that the stakeholders are listening and that they will help these students. Because yeah, what the work that they are doing is really, you know, future generations is echoed throughout here, and they are doing the work. So thank you for that. If there's no further comments or questions, I'd like to thank Naledi and Fayad for the work that you are doing. And we wish you all the best with your research and future studies. And that will bring us to the end of day one. Yeah, the production crew, the award-winning SARA production crew is celebrating because we have ended early, but we will be back tomorrow and for the rest of the week. And so thank you all for attending today. We do appreciate your comments and your engagement. And just one more word from our organizer, Mr. Ben Wasinga.
Thank you. And if I could please ask everyone online to switch on their microphones. So you are hearing me correctly. Could you please switch on your microphones? And please give a very, very big round of applause to Mr. Keenan Africa and our wonderful speakers from today. Well done.
Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.